Hey guys, Tom Barclay here outside Portman Road, where Tottenham have just recorded their third straight win in the league with a 4-1 victory over Ipswich, relegation threatened Ipswich. A very good win overall. Not that it didn't come without its hairy moments at times, particularly the first 5 or 6 minutes where Ipswich could have scored a couple of goals, but overall a convincing scoreline, maybe a bit of a slightly flattering one from Spurs' perspective, but a very welcome another 3 points for Ange Postecoglou's side, who look resurgent with all their players coming back and definitely looked like they had far more options off the bench, and perhaps that was where they killed the game off, having that strength in depth which they've lacked so much during this long, cold, difficult winter. Definitely still winter, although it is a bit warmer today. Story of the game, I guess, a big part of it was Brennan Johnson scoring twice against his old man's former club. David Johnson played with distinction here at Ipswich, his dad winning the promotion back in 2000, 4 seasons or so. Probably the club he's maybe most identified with, Ipswich, David Johnson. But yeah, Brennan scoring against his dad's old side. Both goals were well-taken goals and sort of almost, particularly the first one, almost a bit of a throwback to what we saw a lot of last season under Ange, that kind of goal. So basically it was a lovely ball through from Archie Gray over the top, inch perfect, for Son Heung-min to run onto. Son with his brilliant dancing feet had a little step over which left Ben Godfrey for dead really in the box, then fizzed the ball across, and there was Brennan Johnson finishing off in the 6-yard area, as is his role really in this team. Such a key role in an Ange Postecoglou team is the right side forward being a finisher, and Johnson when he's fit and he's firing is really good at getting into those positions. And so it was the case pretty much for the second goal as well. This time it was Bentancur releasing Son down the left, and it kind of spoke to Ipswich's sort of poor defending really, that Son was given so much time to cut in and pick his spot, but he also had the composure to do it when he laid it back to Johnson, who stroked it into the net for 2-0. And at that stage, after Spurs had sort of managed to survive an early onslaught from Ipswich, you thought, okay, this is maybe a comfortable win for Tottenham. Although I suppose with Spurs, really, it's you're never really sure. And when Omari Hutchinson scored a really nice goal actually to make it 2-1 before half time, you were wondering how this was going to go. There were some hairy moments, I suppose, when Luke Wolfenden, who came on for Godfrey, who was pretty poor to be honest in the first half, headed in and the goal was ruled out rightly for offside. He was well offside, as were a couple of players, but probably a few hearts and mouths from Spurs fans' point of view at that point. And it wasn't really until Jed Spence's killer goal, his first goal in the Premier League, sort of finished the game off with probably about 15 minutes to go, and it was all down to Maddison off the bench. It was a deflected finish from Spence off Wolfenden, but Maddison's excellent feet in the box, looking alive and fresh off the bench, really sort of caused Ipswich's defence all manner of problems. Laid it back for Spence, who strikes it, hits Wolfenden and goes past the keeper to make it 3-1. And then there was even time for Decky Kulusevski to add a bit of gloss to the scoreline. Lovely curling finish in off the post, and you could sense from his celebration the relief in his face over getting a sort of convincing victory, I suppose, overall. Like I say, it wasn't like there weren't any hairy moments at all, and that first 5 minutes spell kind of summed up how Tottenham have been at times under Ange Postecoglou. They seem like more than any other team that I can think of to be a team of moments. That sort of new phrase, I guess, in football speak. It really means spells in games. Obviously, in every game teams have moments when they're on top and spells when they're under the cosh. But Spurs more than ever. I mean, that first 5 minutes, Liam Delap was causing all manner of problems, and hit the post with a header. Had a really good shot saved by Vicario, and the rebound went to Jaden Philogene. If it weren't for the fact that the ball hit an offside Omari Hutchinson on the line, if Hutchinson hadn't been there, it was going in, and that would have been 1-0. And then Delap had another moment where he managed to sort of breeze past Archie Gray, who definitely improved throughout the game. But that first 5 minutes was given a bit of a difficult time from Delap in that early stages, and then prodded the ball wide. So he just, luckily for Spurs, they weren't quite clinical enough for Ipswich in that moment, but they definitely caused them lots of problems. And then from then on, so from Spurs being sort of under the cosh, they suddenly go right into the ascendancy with those two sort of clinical goals, Son and Johnson linking up twice. And then after that, when Hutchinson scores, then suddenly they're under the cosh again, and that's kind of sums it up. I mean, I know it's difficult in the Premier League, and you can see from today's results, Arsenal losing at home, a bunch of teams losing that you wouldn't expect, how unpredictable the Premier League is now, and the strength and depth that this division has, and how difficult it is for teams when they're struggling with injuries or have lots of games because of European competition, and Tottenham definitely are an example of that. But they still have this kind of streakiness in matches that I haven't really noticed from other teams as much, and I think it comes down to his sort of high-risk style of football, and it means that when it goes well, it's brilliant, but it does seem like no matter what position they're in games, Postecoglou Spurs, there's always the risk that it can go wrong, I suppose, which is down to that high-risk style of play. But I suppose the argument for that is the upside, when it goes well, is better than it would be for another manager who's perhaps a bit more cautious. What else sort of took my eye? Thought Lucas Bergvall had a really good game. Really caught my eye from a bunch of sort of driving dribbles across the field, really, teeing up various attacks. His just ability with the ball at his feet is just getting better with every game. That is really, really impressive, and he's got such potential. It's really, really exciting with Bergvall. He's playing at times in a deeper position. Mainly it was Bentancur in 6 today, but yeah, just a real growth in his game throughout this period when they've struggled for numbers, Spurs. But he's been a real plus, as we know. I thought Kevin Danso was really, really impressive. In fact, he was even getting a chant from the away fans to the tune of the old Lampard chant of Super Frankie Lampard, Super Kevin Danso. They seem to really have taken to him very quickly. He's got so many parts to his game which are really, really, really. I'll just move away from some of this loud noises of cars. Oh no, this is about to move. He's got so many parts to his game that really seem to fit the Spurs system. He's got bravery on the ball. He went in for a bunch of headers and came off not worse, but taking some physical whacks in this game. But it didn't seem to sort of faze him. He had moments where his passing was really excellent. He was playing on the left side of centre back today with Gray on the right side, which was a bit of a surprise switch up. Postecoglou explained afterwards that he felt like it fitted and suited Gray's passing ability better, and I suppose that paid off with that great ball through that led to the opener. But also Danso showed the sort of fleet of foot, obviously that pace that he's got, but also a skill on the ball. There was one moment where he did this little Cruyff turn when he was the last man, which was quite risky, but it worked brilliantly, and that's what led to that chant of Super Kevin Danso after the game. And it was it was just really, really impressive. He was good all round. I'd say his fellow late signing in the window, Matisse Tell, had a difficult match. He started through centre forward again, and to be honest, I was hoping for a little bit more from him, having hoped that he would have got up to speed a little bit, having played all these full 90 minutes of late. But this was a difficult game for him. I mean, Ipswich are a very physical, hard-working side. He would have learnt a lot from this match. But it feels like he's got quite a long way to go from a sort of holding up the ball perspective before he can really start to excel in that position, centre forward, for Tottenham. But obviously it's very much early days, but it definitely wasn't one of his better games, even in this sort of early sort of period that we've had so far, but obviously super early days. And on that note, I mean, Liam Delap, and obviously this it looks like they're going to sign Tell, as I've said, expecting him to sign permanently, so I can't see them going for another striker in the summer. I'd be surprised anyway, or another centre forward, given that Dominic Solanke's the main man. But Delap's performance today, particularly in the opening sort of 5-6 minutes, he's such a handful, honestly. Like, he really caused problems. I mean, I missed the game where Spurs lost at home to Ipswich back in, was it November? So I didn't see it then. But watching him up front, live today, he was just such, as I say, a handful, so powerful, such a throwback in the type of striker that he is, that you couldn't help thinking that if Spurs had him and Solanke as sort of options for that centre-forward role, that would really, really give Postecoglou a lot of options. But, I mean, I'd be surprised, to be honest. I mean, probably the kind of player they'd be interested in, but given the options they've already got, I would be surprised on that front, but you never know. But he looked a really, really good player. Who else picked? I mean, obviously Jed Spence again. Started on the right back today. Porro was given a rest on the bench. Moved to left back later on when Udogie came off on the hour, making his return after nearly 8 weeks out. Johnson also came off on the hour, and so Spence moved back to left back with Porra coming on, and he was Spence obviously scored the goal, big deflection, but again he was very good all round. Got a chance of Super Jed himself from the away fans, who really seemed to have taken him to his hearts, and gave another indication or another added weight to the argument that he should be in the reckoning for an England call-up when Thomas Tuchel names his first England squad. We'll wait to see on that, but if Tuchel was watching or watches back this game, I don't think he would have. It would only have persuaded him further if he's thinking about calling up Spence from this performance, I thought. So 3 wins in a row. They're still 12th, so I think they were before the game, but they're now 7 points from 8th. It's still a tall order, and it requires a lot of teams to sort of mess up above, although I guess Bournemouth lost at home, Fulham lost at home, but it also requires Spurs to go on a run, and they obviously won 3 in a row. They've probably got the potential and the ability in the squad to do that, but I still feel like there's an inconsistency or an unreliability in their performances that makes me think I'd be surprised if they manage it. Probably their best bet for Europe, and definitely obviously the Champions League is winning the Europa League. But the option is still there, particularly if it's 8th. That is European qualification this year. If there's 5 Champions League spots, should be 8 spots for 8 spots should be Europa Conference League. So there's still a lot to play for, as Ange has talked about throughout. He onto Ange's comments after the game, he said that he felt like they had to really work really hard. He says Ipswich were one of the hardest working teams in the league, had to really fight for it. He was impressed with that part of their aspect of his team's performance today. He also cited the options off the bench. Maddison is the clear, obvious sort of game changer off the bench today, but now having fit players back, he's kind of been proven right from the comments he made before about how injuries have killed his season at times, and now the players are back. They're going to be in a much better position, and it's not rocket science, is it really? 3 wins out of 3, it's no coincidence they're starting to win games in the league now. They're getting their players back, and he made that point as well. Talking about Johnson, he says they haven't really got another player like him in terms of his finishing ability at the back post. And that was a sort of key aspect to the game. Ben Davies was left out today. He said it was due to managing his minutes. With Man City on Wednesday, which is a chance to sort of extend this run in the league, I suppose, against a team that Spurs have had a lot of good results against in the recent past, particularly at home. On Danzo, he said he's a player who enjoys the wax. I think I mentioned that earlier, and it just said he was a super addition. He's just fitted in really well, and talked about how hard it can be for new players sometimes to sign and integrate. And the way he's done it so quickly has been really, really impressive. I'd say that was one of the biggest takeaways from this game, and in these last few games, is how well Danzo has fitted in. He just looks like a really, really canny bit of business. Tottenham Hotspur, and I guess Johan Lange in particular, need to take a lot of credit for getting Danzo over the line. He looks like a really shrewd signing. And then obviously this takes them 16 points clear of the relegation zone. Ipswich very much in a relegation scrap. In fact, they're 5 points adrift right now after Wolves' surprise win at Bournemouth. But Spurs now get 16 points clear. I don't think we ever really thought they were in a relegation battle. We thought they were showing relegation form. I think that was a fair comment at the time. But this one, it should really be over and done with now after today's win, and sort of hit back a bit about those comments. Really, sort of said it was ridiculous that was even a notion in the first place. Talks about that being almost like the hysteria that was being brought up from the media. And to be fair, I was one of the ones who sort of half mentioned it in a question when it felt relevant, which I don't think he really liked. But why would a manager like that being brought up? But as I say, at the time, they were showing relegation form. It did feel like a fair comment. A lot of fans were talking about it, and there have been incidents where I know that fans have been worried about the prospect of relegation, even as remote as it seemed. And he said, a lot of that was being framed around putting pressure on the club and on him in particular. I'm not sure that's quite fair, but that's the way he sees it. But he admitted that the position in the league still is unacceptable, but they've got a good chance now of improving it. And I suppose when you look at the upturn in form recently, in recent times in the league, and the prospect of more players coming back, there is an opportunity there, and maybe the league isn't completely done. Maybe that's the biggest takeaway from today's performance, is that maybe the league isn't a write-off, and there's still something to play for, even if the Europa League seems the opportunity for salvation from this season. But overall, a good win for Spurs, another win for Spurs, and a good day for Brennan Johnson in particular. Right, I will speak to you after the press conference ahead of the Man City game. Cheers, guys.